The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was absolute. 900 species held their breath as the massive doors at the far end of the hall began to open. Ambassador David Kane stepped through alone, his footsteps echoing across the obsidian floor that stretched nearly a kilometer in every direction out above him. The chamber rose into darkness. Floating platforms held delegations from every corner of the galaxy. Beings of crystal and light, creatures of shadow and mist, massive armored warriors and delicate insects that communicated through color. All of them watched the single human walk toward the central platform with expressions ranging from disgust to curiosity to open hatred. High Chancellor Morvax, an ancient being whose body appeared to be made of living stone, leaned forward from his elevated position. His voice rolled through the chamber like thunder across mountains. The Terran representative will approach the circle of judgment. David kept walking. He had been briefed on the circle, a floating disk suspended above a bottomless pit. No railings, no safety measures. Those who stood before the council stood at the edge of oblivion. It was designed to remind the accused of their insignificance. He stepped onto the platform without hesitation. 12,000 eyes focused on him. Species that had traveled between stars when humanity was still learning to make fire. Civilizations that commanded fleets of 10,000 warships. Empires that spanned 100 worlds, and one human in a simple gray suit. David Kane of Earth, Morvax continued, you have been summoned to answer for crimes against galactic peace. Your species has violated the Sovereign Territory Act. You have engaged military vessels belonging to the Dominion Alliance. You have destroyed 23 warships under Dominion command. The Chancellor paused. How do you respond? The Dominion delegation erupted in hissing sounds of approval. They were reptilian creatures, cold-blooded in every sense. Their empire had controlled the outer sectors for 2,000 years. No one challenged them. No one survived if they tried. David looked up at the countless faces watching him. He knew what they saw. A representative of a species that had possessed faster-than-light travel for barely 50 years. A civilization so young that most council members considered them barely more than animals. Deathworlders from a planet so hostile that it should have killed them millions of years ago. I respond, David said clearly, by asking a question. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. No accused had ever responded this way. Morvax's stone face showed something that might have been surprise. You do not have the right to question this council. Then I will make a statement instead. David's voice carried across the vast space with unexpected strength. 47 days ago, a distress signal reached Earth. It came from a transport vessel in Sector 12. The vessel carried refugees. 6,000 beings from the Luminary civilization, including 3,000 children, fleeing the destruction of their homeworld. The Luminary delegation shifted. They were beings of pure light, and their glow intensified at the mention of their people. That vessel, David continued, was disabled, drifting toward a radiation storm. They had 72 hours before everyone aboard died. He paused. The signal was broadcast for 16 days before we received it. 16 days. It passed through 47 relay stations. It was heard by over 200 civilizations. He turned slowly, looking at the delegations around him. Not one of you answered. The chamber fell silent. The Dominion heard it. They sent ships, but not to rescue. David's voice hardened. They sent ships to ensure the Luminary refugees never reached safe harbor, because the Dominari had been hunting the Luminari for 3 centuries. Because they wanted to finish what they started. The Dominion ambassador rose, his scales rippling with anger. These are lies. Propaganda from Deathworld savages. We have the recordings, David said simply. Every transmission, every order, including the one where your commander told his fleet to let the children die slowly so their parents could watch. The luminary delegation's light flared so brightly that nearby species shielded their eyes. A sound emerged from them. Not words. Something deeper. Grief and rage combined into a frequency that made the air itself vibrate. Morvax raised a massive hand. Order, there will be order. But David was not finished. So yes, Chancellor, we violated your territory laws. We crossed borders without permission. We engaged Dominion warships. He straightened. Because someone was killing children. And where I come from, we do not allow that. 3 weeks earlier, the situation had been very different. Lieutenant Commander Amara Ase sat in the monitoring station on Luna Base, running through the night's signal logs. It was tedious work. Thousands of transmissions passed through Earth's detection grid every hour. Most were commercial traffic, trade negotiations, entertainment broadcasts, the endless chatter of a galaxy that barely acknowledged humanity's existence. Then she found it. The signal was weak, fragmented, but the pattern was unmistakable. Mathematical sequences that could only be intentional. A distress call. She ran the translation algorithms. What came back made her blood run cold. Help us. Our ship is dying. We have children aboard. Please, anyone. Amara escalated immediately. Within the hour, she was standing before Admiral Marcus Stone, the commander of Earth's defensive fleet. Stone was a hard man. He had fought in the First Contact War 30 years ago, when humanity learned they were not alone in the universe. That war had cost Earth 4 billion lives. It had taught humanity that the galaxy was not a friendly place. The signal originated from Sector 12, Amara reported. Dominion space. Stone's jaw tightened. Then it is not our concern. Sir, there are children on that ship. I understand that, Commander. Stone's voice was heavy. But if we enter Dominion territory, we start a war. Earth cannot survive another war. Not yet, Amara wanted to argue. She wanted to scream that this was exactly the kind of thinking that had let the galaxy become what it was. A place where the strong preyed on the weak while everyone else looked away. But she was a soldier. She followed orders. She returned to her station. She filed her report. She tried to sleep. She could not. For 3 days, the signal continued. Help us, please. Anyone. On the 4th day, something changed. Admiral Stone called an emergency meeting. Every senior officer in the fleet attended. When Amara arrived, she found Stone standing before a holographic display showing the refugee vessel's trajectory. New intelligence, Stone said grimly. The Dominion has dispatched a battle group to intercept the refugees. 23 warships. They are not there to rescue anyone. The room fell silent. We have confirmed the refugees are Luminari, Stone continued. A species the Dominion has been systematically exterminating for 300 years. If those ships reach the transport, everyone aboard will die. Captain Thomas Wright spoke up. Sir, what are our options? Stone was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked at the assembled officers. Officially, we have none. Entering Dominion space would violate 17 treaties. It would give the Council grounds to sanction Earth. It could trigger a war we are not ready to fight. He paused. Unofficially, I am asking for volunteers. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Amara stepped forward. I volunteer, sir. One by one, every officer in the room followed. Stone nodded slowly. I thought you might. Very well. He turned to the display. We deploy in 6 hours. 12 ships. The fastest and strongest we have. Our mission is to reach those refugees before the Dominion does and get them to safety. And if the Dominion engages us? Wright asked. Stone met his eyes. Then we show them what happens when you threaten children in front of humans. The fleet launched in secret. 12 vessels sliding through the dark spaces between stars. They traveled paths that should have been impossible, using the gravity wells of dead suns to mask their signatures. When they arrived in Sector 12, they found the refugee transport exactly where the calculations predicted. A massive vessel, nearly 2 kilometers long, tumbling slowly through space. Its engines were dark. Its life support was failing. Emergency lights flickered across its hull like dying stars dot and surrounding it, weapons charging, were 23 Dominion warships. Stone opened a channel. His voice was calm. Dominion vessels, this is Admiral Marcus Stone of the Earth Defense Force. You are targeting a civilian transport. Stand down immediately. The response came in a voice cold as space itself. Terran vessels, you have entered sovereign territory. Withdraw or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds. Stone looked at his crew. Men and women who had volunteered to die for strangers they had never met. People who believed that some things mattered more than survival. All ships, he said quietly. Battle stations. And in the darkness between stars, the first shots were fired. The first Dominion warship exploded before its commander even understood what was happening. Admiral Stone had given no warning. The moment the enemy weapons began charging toward the refugee transport, he ordered his fleet to fire. 12 human vessels against 23 Dominion cruisers. The math should have been simple. The outcome should have been certain. The Dominion had not accounted for what humans actually were. Captain Thomas Wright commanded the forward assault from the bridge of the Relentless. His ship carved through space at speeds the Dominion sensors could barely track. When their targeting systems finally locked on, the Relentless was already behind them. All batteries, fire at will, Wright ordered. Human weapons were different. While the galaxy had developed elegant, efficient systems designed for minimal collateral damage, humans had spent their entire history finding better ways to destroy things. Their railguns accelerated metal slugs to a fraction of light speed. Their plasma lances burned at temperatures found in stellar cores. Their missiles carried warheads that could crack a small moon. The second Dominion ship died in a flash of fire. Then the third, on the Dominion flagship. Commander Varkas watched his tactical display with growing disbelief. His species had conquered 100 worlds. They had crushed rebellions. They had exterminated entire civilizations. No one fought them and survived. Yet these humans, these death-world animals, were tearing his fleet apart. All ships, concentrate fire on the lead vessel, he commanded. Destroy it now. 15 Dominion ships turned their weapons on the Relentless. A barrage that followed should have reduced it to atoms. Energy beams powerful enough to glass a continent converged on a single point. The Relentless absorbed the first volley with its shields. The second volley penetrated, scorching its hull. The third should have killed it. But Wright had already moved. Human ships were not just fast. They were agile in ways that defied the Dominion's understanding of physics. Where other species built vessels designed for elegant maneuvers, humans built ships that could change direction so violently that any normal crew would be crushed by the G-forces. Humans were not normal, but they had evolved on a world that tried to kill them every day. Their bodies could withstand pressures that would liquefy other species. Their reflexes had been honed by millions of years of predators, disasters, and each other. When the galaxy looked at humans and saw primitive savages, they missed the truth. They were looking at the most successful predators in the universe. Wright brought the Relentless around in a turn that would have torn apart any other vessel. He emerged behind the Dominion formation and opened fire again. 2 more enemy ships died. Admiral Stone's voice came over the fleet channel. All ships, defensive formation around the transport. Protect those people. The human vessels formed a ring around the refugee ship. 12 ships against the remaining enemies. The Dominion still outnumbered them. But numbers meant nothing when you were fighting something you did not understand. Commander Varkas stared at the carnage on his display. 8 ships destroyed in less than 3 minutes. 8. His entire career. He had never lost a single vessel in combat. Commander, his tactical officer said, the Terran vessels are shielding the transport. We cannot fire on the refugees without going through them. Then go through them, Varkas hissed. The remaining Dominion ships advanced. Their weapons charged again. They would overwhelm the humans through sheer firepower. Nothing could survive what they were about to unleash. On the refugee transport, a luminary child named Sola pressed against the observation window. She was 7 years old. She had watched her world burn. She had seen her friends vanish in flashes of light. For 3 weeks, she had listened to the adults whisper about death, about how no one was coming, about how they would all disappear like everyone else. Now she watched ships fighting in the darkness. Ships with strange markings. Ships that had appeared from nowhere and positioned themselves between her people and the monsters hunting them. Her mother pulled her away from the window. Do not look, but they are protecting us, Sola said. No one protects us. No one ever has. Sola looked up at her mother's face, saw the hopelessness there, and made a decision. She did not know who these strangers were. She did not understand why they had come. But she refused to believe that no one cared. Someone had answered their call. Back in the battle, the Dominion launched everything they had. Energy weapons, missiles, and particle beams converged on the human defensive line. The space between the fleets became a wall of fire and death. Lieutenant, Commander Amara Osei manned the weapons station on the Harbinger. She had never seen combat before. In training simulations, war was numbers and calculations. Clean, abstract dot, this was something else entirely. Through the chaos, she watched the Sentinel take 3 direct hits. Its shields failed. Its hull breached. Emergency signals flooded the channel. Sentinel is going down, someone reported. Admiral Stone's response was immediate. All ships, cover the Sentinel. Do not let them finish it. The remaining human vessels shifted. They put themselves between the wounded ship and the Dominion fleet. They absorbed fire meant for their fallen brother. The Sentinel's crew did not abandon ship. They could not. The transport was behind them. If they ran, they would leave a gap in the formation. The Dominion would pour through and slaughter everyone on the refugee vessel dot, so they stayed. They fought. They burned. Captain Elena Voss commanded the Sentinel in its final minutes. She was 43 years old. She had a daughter on Earth who had just started university. She had a husband who taught history at a school in Buenos Aires. She had a life waiting for her. She would never see any of it again. All hands, she said over the intercom. This is the captain. We are going to hold this line. We are going to give those people a chance. And when we are gone, our friends will finish what we started. The crew responded, not with words, but with actions. They rerouted power from non-essential systems. They sealed breaches with their own bodies. They kept the weapons firing, even as the ship died around them. The Sentinel lasted 4 more minutes. In those 4 minutes, it destroyed 3 Dominion vessels. When it finally exploded, it took a 4th with it. Commander Varkas watched the human ship die and felt something he had not experienced in decades. Doubt. These creatures were insane. They threw themselves into fire for strangers. They sacrificed their lives for beings they had never met. No rational species behaved this way. No intelligent civilization would spend lives on beings that offered nothing in return. What were they? Commander, his tactical officer said urgently, the Terran vessels are advancing. Varkas looked at the display. The humans had lost 1 ship. They should be retreating. They should be running. Instead, They were attacking. Admiral Stone had made a calculation. His fleet was outgunned, but his ships were faster and more maneuverable. If they stayed defensive, they would eventually be overwhelmed. But if they attacked, if they got close enough to negate the Dominion's numerical advantage, they had a chance. All ships, Stone ordered, close to knife-fighting range. Make them feel our teeth. The human fleet surged forward. They closed the distance in seconds, moving so fast that the Dominion sensors could not track them. They emerged inside the enemy formation, where the Dominion ships could not fire without hitting each other. And then the slaughter truly began at close range. Human weapons were devastating. Railgun rounds punched through Dominion armor like paper. Plasma lances cut vessels in half. Missiles detonated inside engine compartments and weapon bays. The Dominion tried to scatter. They tried to create distance. But the humans stayed with them, matching every maneuver, answering every escape attempt with violence. Within 15 minutes, it was over. 23 Dominion warships had entered Sector 12. 0 left. Admiral Stone looked at the debris field that surrounded his fleet. One of his ships was destroyed. 3 others were badly damaged. 47 of his people were dead, but behind them, still tumbling slowly through space, was the refugee transport. Its lights still flickered. Its life support still functioned. 6,000 luminari were still alive. Stone opened a channel to the transport. "This is Admiral Stone of the Earth Defense Force. You are safe now. We are taking you home." For a long moment, there was no response. Then a voice came through, soft, trembling, speaking in broken, human language that had clearly been learned from intercepted broadcasts. "Why? We are nothing to you. Why did you come?" Stone looked at the bridge crew around him. Men and women who had just fought a battle they should have lost. People who had watched their friends die for strangers. "Because someone needed help," he said simply. "And we heard you." On the refugee transport, Sola watched the strange ships moving closer. Their weapons were silent now. They were sending smaller vessels toward the transport. Not to attack, to help. She turned to her mother. "I told you. Someone cares." Her mother had no words. Only tears. And far away, in the halls of the Galactic Council, reports were arriving. The impossible news. The unthinkable development. The humans had engaged the Dominion. The humans had won. Everything was about to change. Ambassador. David Kane sat in a small transport vessel as it carried him toward the Galactic Council headquarters. Through the window, he could see the massive structure growing larger. The station was the size of a small moon, constructed from materials that gleamed in colors humanity had no names for. It was the heart of galactic civilization, the place where the fates of 1,000 worlds were decided, and he was going there to defend humanity from extinction. The news of the battle in Sector 12 had spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species with access to communication networks had seen the recordings. 12 human ships destroying 23 Dominion warships. The most feared military power in the outer sectors, defeated by a species that most civilizations considered barely more than animals. The reactions were immediate and intense. The Dominion demanded justice. Their ambassador had already submitted a formal complaint to the Council, calling for humanity to be quarantined, sanctioned, and ultimately eliminated as a threat to galactic peace. Other species watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. If humans could defeat the Dominion, what else could they do? What other secrets were they hiding? The comfortable assumption that Deathworlders were inherently inferior was crumbling, and many civilizations did not like what that implied. David's transport docked at the Council station. Security escorts met him at the airlock. They were Vorthic, a species of massive quadrupeds covered in thick plates of natural armor. They said nothing as they led him through corridors that stretched for kilometers. The council headquarters was designed to intimidate. Ceilings rose so high they vanished into darkness. Artwork from 1,000,000 worlds lined the walls. Every element reminded visitors that they were small, insignificant. Temporary visitors to an institution that had existed for 50,000 years. David refused to be intimidated. He had been briefed on what to expect. The council would be hostile. The Dominion would be pushing for the harshest possible response. Even species sympathetic to humans would likely stay silent, afraid of being associated with Earth's actions. But he had also received something else before he left. A private message from Admiral Stone. The message contained a single file. A recording from the Dominion flagship's own systems, captured during the battle. It showed Commander Varkas giving the order that changed everything. Let the children die slowly. Make their parents watch. That recording was David's weapon. The truth about what the Dominion had intended. The reason Earth's fleet had intervened. He would wait for the right moment to use it. The escort brought him to a holding chamber outside the main council hall. He would be called when the council was ready. Until then, he could only wait. An hour passed. Then, too, David understood. They were making him wait deliberately. Another intimidation tactic, showing him how unimportant humanity was in the grand scheme of galactic politics. He spent the time reviewing his notes, preparing his arguments, running through every possible scenario. Then the door opened, and he was summoned. The council chamber was even larger than the recordings had suggested. David walked the long path to the Circle of Judgment, feeling 12,000 eyes tracking his every step. The floating platform was exactly as he had been warned. No rails, no safety. The bottomless pit below, creating a constant awareness of how easily he could fall. He stepped onto the platform without hesitation. High, Chancellor Morvax began the proceedings with a recitation of the charges. Violation of sovereign territory. Destruction of military vessels. Acts of war against a recognized galactic power. The list was long and thorough. When it ended, the Dominion ambassador rose. His name was Kessex, and he was old even by reptilian standards. His scales had faded to a dull gray, but his eyes burned with cold hatred. The evidence is clear, Kessex said. The Terrans attacked without provocation. They entered our space. They destroyed our ships. They murdered our people. He turned to face the council. We demand the full penalty under galactic law. The Terran homeworld must be quarantined. Their fleet must be dismantled, and their leaders must be surrendered to face Dominion justice. Murmurs of approval came from several delegations. The Dominion had powerful allies, species that benefited from their protection, species that feared what might happen if they opposed them. David waited until the murmurs died. May I speak? He asked. Morvax nodded. You may respond to the charges. David looked around the chamber. 900 species, thousands of representatives, the entire galaxy watching. The Dominion ambassador speaks of provocation, David began. He says we attacked without reason. He says we murdered their people. He paused. I have a different perspective. He activated a small device on his wrist. A holographic display materialized above the Circle of Judgment. It showed the refugee transport surrounded by Dominion warships. This is what our fleet found when we arrived in Sector 12. 6,000 Luminari refugees, 3,000 of them children, drifting toward a radiation storm that would have killed them all within days. The display shifted, showing the Dominion vessels charging their weapons. And this is what the Dominion was doing. Not rescuing, not helping, preparing to fire on a civilian transport. Kessex's voice cut through the chamber. Lies. Our vessels were there to ensure order, to protect our borders from unauthorized incursions. Then explain this. David activated the recording from the Dominion flagship. Commander Varkus's voice filled the chamber, cold and clear. Let the children die slowly. Make their parents watch. The chamber fell absolutely silent. The luminary delegation, beings of pure light who had remained still throughout the proceedings, began to pulse. Their glow intensified. Colors shifted through their forms. Grief and rage made visible. David let the silence stretch. The Dominion has spent 300 years hunting the Luminari, he said finally. 300 years of extermination. Genocide on a scale this galaxy has chosen to ignore. He looked directly at Morvax. We did not attack without provocation. We intervened to stop a massacre. Kessex rose again, his scales rippling with agitation. These recordings are fabricated. Terran propaganda designed to justify their aggression. The recordings came from your own ship's systems, David replied calmly. We recovered them from the wreckage of Commander Varkus's flagship. Your own technology. Your own encryption. Verified by our intelligence services and available for independent analysis by any delegation that wishes to examine them. The chamber erupted into noise. Delegations consulted with each other. Arguments broke out. Species that had been silent began to speak. Morvax raised a massive hand. Order. There will be order. Slowly, the noise subsided. The Council will recess to examine this evidence, Morvax announced. We will reconvene in 6 standard hours. David remained on the platform as the delegations began to disperse. He had done what he could. Now everything depended on what the Council decided to believe. As he turned to leave, he noticed movement in the shadows above. A small figure descended on a floating platform. A luminari, their light dimmer than the others, approaching him directly. Ambassador Kane. David stopped. Yes? The luminary drew closer. This close, David could see that their form was damaged, scarred. Parts of their light flickered irregularly, as if wounded. My name is Illumina. I am what remains of the Luminari government. The being's voice was soft but steady. I came here to beg the Council for help, to plead for intervention, to ask someone, anyone, to stop the Dominion from finishing what they started. David nodded slowly. And what happened? They listened politely. They expressed sympathy. They did nothing. Illumina's light pulsed with something that might have been bitter laughter. For 300 years, we have been dying. And for 300 years, the galaxy has watched. I know, David said quietly. No, you do not. Illumina moved closer. You cannot know what it is to see your children hunted, to watch your civilization erased, to scream into the void and hear only silence, the light being paused, and then, impossibly, to see strangers appear from nowhere and die to protect people they have never met. David was quiet for a moment. We heard the call. We could not ignore it. But why? Every other species did. What makes humans different? It was the question David had been asking himself since this mission began. What did make humanity different? Why had they responded when no one else would? He thought about Earth's history, the wars, the violence, the endless capacity for destruction, but also the other things, the volunteers who rushed into disasters, the strangers who gave their lives for others, the stubborn, irrational belief that some things mattered more than survival. I do not know if we are different, he said finally, but I know what we believe. We believe that when children are crying, someone should answer. We believe that evil must be opposed, even when the cost is high. We believe that what you do for others defines who you are. Illumina was silent for a long moment. You truly believe these things. We try to live by them. We do not always succeed, but we try. Then perhaps, Illumina said softly, there is hope after all. The Luminari turned and began to drift away. Then they stopped. Ambassador Kane, In 6 hours, the Council will reconvene. The Dominion will have had time to mobilize their allies. They will push for the harshest penalties. They will try to destroy you. I know. I cannot help you openly. My people have nothing left to offer. But I can tell you one thing. Illumina's light flickered. When the moment comes, I will testify. I will tell the truth about what the Dominion has done, what they intended to do, what your people stopped them from doing. David felt something loosen in his chest. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. The Council may not listen. They have ignored the truth for 300 years. Illumina's form began to fade as they ascended back into the shadows. But for the first time, someone has made them see it. Whatever happens next, you have already changed the galaxy. David watched the luminary disappear. 6 hours. The future of humanity would be decided in 6 hours. He turned and walked toward the holding chamber. He had work to do. The council chamber was different when David returned. The atmosphere had shifted from hostile curiosity to something closer to a battlefield. Delegations had chosen sides. The Dominion's allies clustered together, their representatives exchanging confident gestures. But there were also new groupings. Species that had remained neutral now sat closer to each other, watching the proceedings with expressions that suggested calculation rather than passive observation. Something had changed during the recess. David stepped onto the circle of judgment once more. The bottomless pit below seemed darker than before. More hungry. High Chancellor Morvax opened the session with a statement. The Council has examined the evidence presented by the Terran ambassador. The recordings have been authenticated. They are genuine. A ripple of noise passed through the chamber. David kept his expression neutral. However, Morvax continued, the authenticity of the recordings does not change the fundamental legal issue. The Terran species entered sovereign Dominion territory without authorization. They engaged Dominion military vessels. 23 ships were destroyed. These facts are not in dispute. The Dominion delegation hissed with satisfaction. The question before this council, Morvax said, is what response is appropriate given these circumstances? Kessex rose immediately. The law is clear, Chancellor. Unauthorized military incursions into sovereign space constitute an act of war. The penalty is equally clear. The aggressor species must be contained. Their military capabilities must be neutralized. He paused for effect. The Dominion demands nothing less than full implementation of the containment protocol. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The containment protocol was the Council's ultimate sanction. A species subjected to it would be blockaded. Their ships would be destroyed on sight. Their homeworld would be isolated from all galactic commerce. Over time, they would wither and die. It was extinction by slow starvation. The Dominion's position is noted, Morvax said. Does the Terran representative wish to respond? David looked up at the thousands of watching eyes. He had prepared for this moment. He had run through every argument, every appeal, every logical case he could make. But standing here, facing the possibility of his species' annihilation, he realized that logic was not enough. These beings did not need to be convinced. They needed to be moved. I wish to respond, he said. But first, I request that the Council hear testimony from someone else. Someone who witnessed the events in Sector 12 firsthand. Morvax's stone face showed surprise. This is irregular. The Council claims to seek justice, David replied. Justice requires hearing from those most affected by the events in question. He turned to face the delegations. I request that the luminary representative be permitted to speak. The chamber erupted into noise. Species shouted objections. Others demanded silence. The Dominion delegation rose as one, scales rippling with fury. The luminari have no standing here, Kessex snarled. They are refugees, Vagabonds. They do not represent a recognized government. They represent 6,000 survivors of attempted genocide, David replied. If this council cannot hear their voice, then what is the point of any of this? Morvax raised his hand. The chamber fell silent. The request is unusual, but not prohibited, the Chancellor said slowly. The council will hear the luminary representative. From the shadows above, Illumina descended. Their light was brighter than before, stronger. As they approached the circle of judgment, every eye in the chamber followed them. Illumina stopped beside David. Their voice filled the space with quiet intensity. My people have existed for 800,000 years. We were ancient when most species represented here were still developing basic agriculture. We built civilizations that spanned dozens of worlds. We created art and music and literature that the galaxy once celebrated. They paused, their light flickering. 300 years ago, the Dominion decided we were a threat. Not because we attacked them. Not because we threatened their interests. Simply because we existed in space they wanted to control. They began systematically destroying our worlds, burning our colonies, hunting our ships. The luminary ambassador turned slowly, letting their damaged light speak for them. I am what remains of our government, scarred, broken, one of perhaps 6,000 luminari still alive in the entire galaxy. Their voice hardened. For 300 years, I have come to this council. I have begged for intervention. I have pleaded for help. I have presented evidence of atrocities that should have shocked any civilized being. Illumina faced Morvax directly. And for 300 years, this council has done nothing. You have expressed concern. You have formed committees. You have passed resolutions that meant nothing. Their light flared. You watched my people die and called it maintaining galactic stability. The chamber was absolutely silent. Then, 47 days ago, our last refugee convoy was cornered. The Dominion had finally found us. They were going to finish what they started. 3,000 children were going to die while the galaxy watched and did nothing. Illumina's form trembled. We sent a distress signal. We begged anyone listening to help. For 16 days, that signal traveled across the galaxy. Hundreds of civilizations heard it. The being turned to face the delegations. Only one answered. Illumina moved closer to David. These humans, these Deathworlders that most of you consider barely civilized, heard our children crying. And they came. They sent 12 ships against 23. They lost one of their vessels. 47 of their people died. The light being's voice broke. They died for strangers. They died for people they had never met. They died because they believed no child should be murdered while others stand by and watch. Illumina faced the council one final time. You ask what penalty the humans deserve. I ask what penalty you deserve. For 300 years of silence. For 300 years of complicity. For 300 years of watching genocide and calling it peace. Their light blazed so bright that nearby delegations shielded their eyes. The humans are not the criminals here. They are the only species in this galaxy that remembered what justice actually means. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegations shouted at each other. Species that had remained neutral began demanding investigations into the Dominion's activities. The Dominion's allies were suddenly facing questions from neighbors who had accepted their leadership for centuries. Morvax called for order. It took nearly 10 minutes for the noise to subside. The testimony has been heard, the Chancellor said finally. His voice was heavier than before. Something had shifted in his ancient stone face. The council will now deliberate. Kessex rose, his scales almost white with rage. This changes nothing. The law is the law. The Terrans must be punished. The law is the law, Morvax agreed. But the law also requires us to consider context, intent, the circumstances that led to the violation. Circumstances? Keswick's voice rose. They attacked our ships. They killed our people. What circumstances justify that? David spoke quietly. You were about to murder 6,000 civilians, including 3,000 children. I believe it justifies quite a lot. You dare speak to me that way, Deathworlder? I dare speak the truth. Something this council seems to have forgotten how to do. Keswick turned to the chamber. You see? You see what these creatures are? Violent, arrogant, dangerous. If you do not contain them now, they will be a threat to every species in the galaxy. David stood straighter. We are not a threat to every species. We are a threat to those who prey on the weak, to those who murder children, to those who mistake cruelty for power. He looked directly at Keswick. We are a threat to you. The Dominion ambassador's eyes narrowed. Is that a declaration of war? It is a statement of fact. We will not stand by while innocents die. We will not ignore distress calls. We will not pretend that genocide is someone else's problem. David's voice carried across the chamber. If that makes us your enemy, then so be it. Morvax intervened. The council will recess for final deliberation. A vote will be taken in 2 hours. As the delegations began to disperse, Keswick approached David. The reptilian's voice was quiet, meant only for him. You think you have won something here. You have not. Even if the council shows mercy, the Dominion will not. He leaned closer. We have 3,000 warships. You have 300. Do the mathematics. I have, David replied calmly. Then you know what will happen. The council may not destroy you, but we will. We will burn your world. We will scatter your ashes. And when we are done, no one will remember that humans ever existed. David met the reptilian's eyes without flinching. You have 3,000 ships. We have 300. You are correct. He paused. But you have never fought a species forged on a death world. You have never faced beings who evolved to survive anything. You have never gone to war against people who would rather die than surrender. He stepped closer. We lost 47 people defending 6,000 strangers. If you attack Earth, we will lose millions. And we will still fight. Every man, every woman, every child who can hold a weapon. We will make you pay for every inch of space. We will haunt you for centuries. And when it is over, whether we survive or not, you will be broken. David turned away. Do the mathematics on that. He walked toward the exit, leaving Keswick standing alone. 2 hours. The future would be decided in 2 hours. But David already knew one thing for certain. Whatever the council decided, whatever the Dominion threatened, humanity would not go quietly into the darkness. They had heard children crying. They had answered, and they would never stop answering. No matter what it cost, the council chamber filled for the final time. Every delegation was present. Every representative had taken their position. The weight of history pressed down on the assembled species like a physical force. David Kane stood on the circle of judgment, watching the galaxy beside his people's fate. Behind him, the bottomless pit waited. He had stopped noticing it hours ago. There were worse things to fear than falling. High Chancellor Morvax rose. His ancient stone form seemed heavier than before, as if the deliberations had added years to his already immeasurable age. The council has reached a decision. The chamber fell silent. Every being present understood that this moment would echo through history. The evidence presented has been examined thoroughly. The testimony of the Luminary representative has been given full consideration. The legal implications of the Terran actions have been weighed against the circumstances that prompted them. Morvax paused. His voice seemed to carry a new texture, something that might have been uncertainty. The Council finds that the Terran incursion into Dominion space While technically a violation of the Sovereign Territory Act, was undertaken for humanitarian purposes. The Dominion's intended actions against the Luminari refugee convoy constitute a crime against galactic peace far more severe than any border violation. The Dominion delegation erupted in furious hissing. Kessex rose, his scales almost white with rage. This is outrageous. The Council has no authority to judge Dominion internal matters. The murder of 6,000 civilians, including 3,000 children, is not an internal matter, Morvax replied. It is a violation of the Fundamental Rights Charter, a charter the Dominion itself signed. We do not recognize this decision. We reject this ruling. Morvax's stone face hardened. Then you reject the Council itself. And if you reject the Council, you reject the protections and privileges that come with membership. The chamber fell silent again. Everyone understood what that meant. The Dominion's power came partly from their military strength, but also from their position within galactic institutions. Trade agreements, diplomatic immunity, access to restricted technologies. All of it would vanish if they withdrew from the Council. Kessex was trapped. He could not accept the ruling without appearing weak. He could not reject it without destroying the foundation of Dominion influence. He chose a third option. The Dominion does not require the Council's permission to defend itself, he said slowly. The Terrans attacked our vessels. They killed our people. If the Council will not deliver justice, we will take it ourselves. He turned to face David directly. In 12 standard hours, the Dominion fleet will depart for Terran space. Your species has that long to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will treat your homeworld as you treated our ships. The chamber exploded into noise. Delegations shouted at each other. Species called for calm. Others demanded that the Council intervene. David remained still on the platform. He had known this was coming. He had prepared for it. Chancellor, he said, his voice cutting through the chaos, I request permission to address the Council one final time. Morvax nodded slowly. Speak. David looked around the chamber. 900 species. Thousands of representatives. The entire galaxy watching. You have heard the Dominion's threat. You understand what it means. In 12 hours, they will send 3,000 warships to destroy my homeworld, to murder 8 billion people, to erase my species from existence. He paused. This is not justice. This is not even war. This is extermination. The same extermination they attempted against the Luminari. The same extermination they have carried out against dozens of species over the past 3,000 years. David's voice hardened. For 3,000 years, this galaxy has lived under the Dominion's shadow. You have watched them hunt and kill and conquer. You have remained silent because you were afraid, because challenging them seemed impossible, because the cost seemed too high. He stepped to the edge of the platform, standing above the bottomless pit. Humanity has existed as a spacefaring species for 50 years. We are young. We are small. We have 300 warships against the 3,000. By every calculation, we should lose. His eyes swept across the delegations. But we will not surrender. We will not bow. We will not let them murder us without a fight. Because that is what Deathworlders do. We survive. We adapt. We find a way. David's voice rose. The Dominion thinks they are strong because they have never been challenged. They think they are invincible because no one has ever made them bleed. They are wrong. We made them bleed in Sector 12. 12 ships against 23, and we destroyed them all. He turned to face Kessex directly. You want war? You will have it. But understand this. We are not the Luminari. We are not a peaceful species caught off guard. We are predators. We are survivors. We are the most dangerous thing this galaxy has ever produced. He lowered his voice, but somehow it carried even further. Come to Earth. Bring your 3,000 ships. And watch what happens when you corner something that evolved to fight for its life. Kessix's scales rippled. Words. Empty words from a dying species. Then prove it. Come and find out. The challenge hung in the air. For a long moment, no one spoke. The entire galaxy held its breath. And something unprecedented happened. A delegation rose. The Vorthik. The massive armored beings who had served as council security for millennia. Their representatives stepped forward, their voice booming through the chamber. The Vorthik stand with the humans. The chamber erupted in shock, and another delegation rose. The crystalline beings of the Silverix Consortium. Their representative's voice chimed like bells. The Silverix stand with the humans. Then another, and another, and another. Species that had remained silent for centuries found their voices. Species that had cowered under Dominion threats for generations suddenly remembered their courage. Species that had watched the Luminary genocide with guilty silence finally decided they had watched enough. Within minutes, over 100 delegations had declared their support for humanity. Kessix stood frozen, watching his empire's diplomatic foundation crumble.